Stop letting the invisible tug of war between hustle and surrender consume the very energy you need to create a prosperous life. I want you to notice something before we go any further. Notice your shoulders. Notice your jaw. Notice the subtle pressure behind your eyes when you think about financial resources, obligations, tomorrow, opportunity. One part of you may whisper, push harder. Another whispers, release everything. And caught between those voices, your attention becomes divided. Today, I'm inviting you into another possibility. I do not believe prosperity requires you to become a machine of endless effort, nor do I believe abundance asks you to sit motionless while waiting for invisible forces to arrange your life. I see something far more powerful between those extremes. There is an ancient meeting place between movement and stillness, intention and openness, creation and reception. It is not masculine against feminine. It is not force against surrender. It is the sacred intelligence of knowing when to move and when to become still enough to see. And this is where I invoke the symbolic presence of Angel Abundia, not as a promise that wealth will mysteriously appear, but as an archetype of overflowing supply, generosity, possibility, and spiritual sufficiency. Imagine her presence as golden warmth entering a room before you can see its source. Feel that warmth touching your hands, moving across your chest, softening the place where financial fear has been stored. Nothing needs to be forced in this moment. You are simply becoming available to a different relationship with prosperity. Now breathe slowly and hear these words internally. YESERAYE EFFATA. Do not struggle to make something supernatural happen. Allow the phrase to become a contemplative anchor, a doorway through which your attention returns from anxiety into presence. YESERAYE EFFATA. With every repetition, imagine the noise becoming quieter until you can distinguish genuine intuition from panic, disciplined action from compulsive striving, and healthy receptivity from passive waiting. There is a reason this distinction matters more than most people realize. When you confuse urgency with ambition, you exhaust yourself. When you confuse surrender with avoidance, opportunities can pass unnoticed. But when those two currents finally recognize each other, something changes. Your decisions become cleaner, your awareness widens, your relationship with earning, receiving, keeping, sharing, and creating financial resources can begin to mature. And this leads directly to the hidden conflict. I want to expose first the conflict that can make abundance feel distant, even while opportunity stands surprisingly close. I want you to picture yourself standing between two enormous doors. Behind the first, you hear machinery turning, footsteps accelerating, clocks ticking, phones ringing, the relentless sound of achievement. Behind the second, there is almost nothing. A quiet room, open windows, soft air moving through white curtains. One door says, "Make it happen." The other says, "Allow it to happen." Most people believe they must choose. I believe that choice itself creates the fracture. For years, many of us absorbed the idea that prosperity belongs primarily to those who push harder, sacrifice longer, sleep less, compete more aggressively, and never stop moving. That belief can disguise anxiety as ambition. The body tightens. Rest begins to feel dangerous. Receiving without struggle feels suspicious. Even success becomes difficult to enjoy because the mind immediately asks what must be conquered next. The infinite ocean may surround you, yet your hands remain clenched too tightly to hold water. Then another philosophy appears and tells you to release everything. Stop pursuing, stop controlling, simply attract, receive, trust, wait. There is beauty inside surrender, but surrender without discernment can become another hiding place. A seed resting forever in your palm never becomes a harvest. There are moments when life requires your hands, your voice, your courage, your planning, your boundaries, your work. Sacred reception was never meant to erase sacred participation. This is why I refuse to imprison these forces inside rigid ideas about gender. Within every human being lives the capacity to initiate and the capacity to receive. You can build and listen. You can pursue and pause. You can negotiate fiercely and remain inwardly peaceful. Call these currents masculine and feminine if that language serves your spiritual framework. But remember what matters beneath the labels. Both currents belong within the whole human being. Neither needs to conquer the other. Place one hand over your chest now, and the other over your abdomen. Take a slow breath through your nose, and imagine two currents approaching one another. One feels warm, focused, directional, the current of action. The other feels spacious, cool, receptive, the current of allowing. Do not make either one disappear. Watch them spiral together like two streams of luminous water entering the same river. Then whisper inwardly, YESERAYE EFFATA. Something important is hidden inside this image, because the breakthrough is not produced by destroying one polarity. It appears when the struggle between them ends. And in a moment, I will show you why that quiet meeting point can change the way you recognize opportunities, make decisions, and relate to financial flow. Stay with the sensation in your hands. Perhaps there is warmth. Perhaps nothing dramatic happens at all. Both responses are completely acceptable. The purpose is not to manufacture a mystical sensation. The purpose is to notice yourself without judgment. Your body has learned associations around security, work, receiving, spending, and certainty, and survival, and awareness gives you a chance to respond differently instead of automatically repeating the same pattern. Imagine Angel Abundia standing before an immense golden archway. Beyond her is not a vault filled with instant riches, but an open landscape containing possibilities you could never recognize while consumed by internal conflict. There are conversations you have not initiated, skills you have not fully developed, boundaries you have postponed, ideas you dismissed too quickly. There are also moments when doing less may reveal what frantic activity concealed. This is the landscape of integrated prosperity. Now imagine placing every inherited command at the threshold. Work until you collapse. Receiving makes you selfish. Wealth corrupts. Security can disappear at any moment. You must struggle to deserve comfort. You do not need to argue with those sentences. Simply see them lying there like old garments you have outgrown. You can respect the lives and circumstances that produce them without allowing those beliefs to govern your next financial decision. That distinction is sovereignty. I call this the beginning of the sovereign channel. A sovereign channel does not chase every opportunity from fear, and it does not reject responsibility in the name of spirituality. It listens, evaluates, moves, adjusts, receives. There is rhythm here, the rhythm of breath itself. You inhale, you receive, you exhale, you contribute. Try inhaling forever and the system collapses. Try exhaling forever and the same happens. Life reveals its intelligence through exchange. Financial flow also involves exchange. You create value and receive compensation. You preserve resources and deploy them thoughtfully. You learn when to say yes, and when a clean no protects what you are building. None of this requires abandoning spiritual depth. For me, spiritual wealth becomes more meaningful when it strengthens discernment rather than replacing it. The golden rain of possibility still asks for open hands, but open hands must eventually know what they intend to build. So breathe again. YESERAYE EFFATA. Imagine the two currents inside you becoming one luminous stream, not because difference has vanished, but because conflict has. Feel that stream moving from the center of your chest through your arms and into your palms. You are not commanding the universe to deliver a prize. You are training yourself to stand differently before possibility. Calmer, clearer, receptive, awake, and prepared to act when action becomes necessary. If you feel your inner relationship with prosperity beginning to shift, declare your readiness in the comments in whatever words feel natural to you. Not as a bargain with the universe, not as a ritual promising instant wealth. Use the declaration as a personal threshold, a visible decision to stop letting fear dictate every financial thought. Because the next threshold goes deeper than action and reception. It takes us into the silent point between them, where neither force dominates and a completely different quality of clarity can emerge. That silent point is where Angel Abundia will meet us next, not in frantic pursuit, not in passive waiting, in the stillness between the inhale and the exhale, where the old tug-of-war temporarily disappears and your attention becomes available again. There we will enter what I call fluid neutrality, the place where urgency loses its throne, receptivity gains discernment, and the sacred blueprint of sovereign prosperity begins to feel less like an idea and more like a way of moving through life. There is a fraction of silence between one breath and the next that most people never notice. The inhale arrives, fills the lungs, lifts the chest, and then, for an almost invisible instant, everything becomes still. Before the exhale begins, there is no taking and no giving, no pursuit and no retreat. I want you to enter that space with me now, because hidden inside that ordinary pause is a powerful model for prosperity. I call it the sacred neutral point. For years, you may have been taught to recognize only movement as progress. A phone ringing feels productive. A full calendar feels important. A bank notification can immediately change the temperature of your thoughts. Yet frantic motion and meaningful movement are not the same thing. I have learned that some of my clearest choices emerge when I stop wrestling with the outcome long enough to actually see what stands before me. Stillness does not cancel action. It purifies its direction. Close your eyes for a moment if your surroundings allow it, and imagine yourself standing beside a vast, dark ocean just before sunrise. The water is perfectly calm, like polished obsidian beneath your feet, and the horizon holds a thin seam of gold. There is nothing you need to chase across that water. There is nothing you need to drag toward the shore. Breathe in slowly, pause naturally, and silently say, YESERAYE EFFATA. As you breathe out, imagine the word force leaving your body, not strength force. There is a difference. Strength can remain quiet. Strength can wait. Strength can examine an opportunity without grabbing it, because fear says another one may never come. Feel your shoulders loosen while the golden seam on the horizon grows wider. This is the frequency of prosperity I want you to understand. Not a supernatural guarantee of financial gain, but a state in which fear becomes less capable of controlling your choices. Now, picture Angel Abundia approaching across that silent horizon, surrounded not by spectacle, but by extraordinary calm. In this visualization, she carries two vessels. One represents your capacity to initiate, decide, build, negotiate, create, and protect. The other represents your capacity to listen, notice, receive, adapt, trust, and recognize support. Neither vessel is greater. Neither is complete without the other. And what happens when their contents finally meet will reveal the deeper mystery behind fluid neutrality. Watch carefully as the two vessels tilt toward a single golden basin. One stream enters like liquid fire, warm and purposeful. The other resembles silver water, cool and spacious. At first, they appear incompatible, yet the instant they touch, neither destroys the other. They begin circling, folding, blending until the distinction between them becomes almost impossible to see. This is what integration feels like. You have not surrendered your ambition. You have removed its panic. And you have not abandoned receptivity either. You have removed the helplessness that sometimes disguises itself as surrender. There is an enormous difference between saying, "I will wait because I am afraid to move," and saying, "I will remain still until I can see where movement actually belongs." One response contracts your world. The other preserves your energy for intelligent action. That distinction can quietly transform how you approach work, opportunities, financial resources, and even uncertainty. Bring to mind one financial concern that has been consuming too much mental space. Do not choose the most painful issue in your life if that feels overwhelming. Choose something you can observe with a little distance. Perhaps it is an expense, a decision, an unfinished plan, a conversation you have postponed, or uncertainty surrounding future income. See it written on a sheet of paper resting before you. For several breaths, resist the impulse to solve it. Notice what your body tries to do. Does your chest tighten? Does your mind immediately generate 10 catastrophic possibilities? Do you feel compelled to act simply because acting temporarily reduces uncertainty? I want you to observe these impulses as information rather than commands. Whisper inwardly, YESERAYE EFFATA. Let the phrase remind you that you are allowed to create a small space between stimulus and response. Inside that space, sovereignty begins returning to your decisions. Now, ask yourself a quieter question. What does this situation actually require from me? Not what fear demands, not what inherited scarcity predicts, not what another person's lifestyle pressures you to imitate. What is the next clear, responsible movement available to you? Perhaps you need information. Perhaps you need patience. Perhaps you need to make a call, establish a boundary, reduce an unnecessary expense, develop a skill, or simply postpone a decision until you understand it better. Clarity rarely screams, and this brings us to the secret hidden beneath the golden basin, because once action and reception become cooperative, another layer becomes visible. Many of the impulses you once called intuition may have been inherited fear wearing spiritual clothing. Some of the pressure you called ambition may have been an old survival script asking you to prove that you deserve safety. In the next movement of this practice, we begin separating those voices, and that separation changes everything. For now, remain beside the imaginary ocean. The sun has begun rising, and golden light stretches across the surface until it reaches your feet. Imagine that light moving slowly upward through your legs, abdomen, chest, shoulders, and hands. Do not imagine that it is depositing wealth into your life by magic. Let it represent something more useful: the possibility of meeting your circumstances without allowing scarcity to dominate your perception. I want you to feel how different abundance becomes when you stop treating it as an emergency. An emergency says, I must have more immediately, or I cannot be safe. Sovereignty says, I can examine what I have, what I need, what I can create, and what I can change. One posture burns enormous amounts of attention. The other gathers attention back into your hands, where it can become planning, creativity, discipline, communication, and deliberate movement. Imagine now that Angel Abundia places the golden basin into your hands. Feel its symbolic weight, not impossibly heavy, but substantial enough to demand your attention. Inside it, the fiery current of action and the silver current of reception continue circling without collision. This is the inner wealth I want you to cultivate before chasing outer symbols of wealth. The capacity to hold intensity without becoming frantic, and possibility without becoming passive, is a form of prosperity in itself. Breathe deeply and repeat, YESERAYE EFFATA. On the inhale, receive information, possibility, assistance, insight, rest. On the exhale, imagine yourself contributing effort, value, courage, boundaries, creativity, and decisions. Then notice the natural pause before the next breath. That pause is not emptiness. It is calibration. It is the small sovereign territory where you can decide whether your next movement comes from clarity or from an old reflex. This is why I speak of energetic alignment carefully. I'm not asking you to believe that a particular emotional frequency mechanically controls financial outcomes. I use energy as a spiritual language for the quality you bring into your choices. Scattered or centered, fearful or discerning, compulsive or deliberate. When your inner state changes, your behavior can change with it. And when behavior changes consistently, the possibilities you notice and the decisions you make can change as well. There is something else I want you to notice. The infinite ocean in front of you has never demanded that every wave arrive at once. Its power exists because movement occurs rhythmically: advance, retreat, gathering, release. Your prosperity practice can develop the same rhythm. There are seasons for expanding, seasons for protecting resources, seasons for learning, seasons for building, and seasons when patience itself prevents an expensive mistake. Wisdom recognizes the season before choosing the movement. And this is where another curiosity opens before us. If your internal conflict did not begin with you, where did you learn that rest was dangerous, receiving was uncomfortable, or financial security required constant struggle? Why can a person consciously desire abundance while unconsciously repeating beliefs built around deprivation? The answer does not require blaming your family or your past. It requires something far more sovereign: recognizing what you inherited without automatically continuing it. Before we enter that territory, place the imaginary basin gently on the ground. See Angel Abundia standing behind it as the sunrise finally breaks across the entire horizon. Gold touches silver, fire touches water, movement touches stillness. Nothing needs to win. You are witnessing an internal treaty between capacities that were never supposed to become enemies, and the quiet created by that treaty allows buried beliefs to become visible. Say the phrase once more, slowly, YESERAYE EFFATA. Then allow several seconds of inner silence. Notice whether a sentence about prosperity rises spontaneously. I must struggle. There is never enough. I cannot trust success. I should feel guilty receiving. Security never lasts. Do not suppress whatever appears, and do not automatically believe it. Simply recognize the sentence. What can be seen clearly no longer needs to operate entirely from the shadows. If you feel this inner neutrality beginning to make sense, declare your readiness in the comments, not as a transaction for prosperity, but as a conscious statement that you are willing to observe your patterns differently. Your words might be as simple as, I choose clarity over financial fear, or whatever language genuinely belongs to you. The declaration matters because awareness becomes stronger when it is followed by intentional behavior. The next step is learning which beliefs deserve to accompany you forward, because behind some of your deepest reactions to wealth may stand voices far older than the present moment. They can sound like parents, grandparents, communities, difficult seasons, cultural expectations, or memories absorbed before you understood what financial security even meant. We are not going to fight those voices. We are going to illuminate them. And once the light reaches them, you may discover that some of the scarcity you have been carrying was never truly yours to keep. Some beliefs enter your life so early that they never introduced themselves as beliefs. They arrive disguised as reality. Perhaps you heard adults lower their voices whenever bills appeared, or watch tension enter a room whenever someone mentioned debt, work, opportunity, or unexpected expenses. Maybe prosperity was admired from a distance, but distrusted when it came too close. Without anyone deliberately teaching you a philosophy of scarcity, your nervous system may have learned a simple equation: resources equal uncertainty, and uncertainty requires vigilance. I want you to understand this without blaming anyone who came before you. People often transmit what helped them survive the conditions they knew. A warning that sounds limiting today may once have been someone's attempt to protect a family from instability. A fear surrounding wealth may have grown from loss, exclusion, disappointment, or years when every resource mattered. You can honor the people who carried those experiences without making their fear your permanent financial blueprint. Compassion and separation can exist together. Imagine yourself walking through a long ancestral corridor illuminated by small amber lamps. Along the walls hang empty frames, not portraits, because you do not need to invent faces or histories you cannot know. Instead, each frame contains a sentence: save everything because disaster is coming. People with wealth cannot be trusted. Wanting more makes you selfish. Farther ahead, another says, you must exhaust yourself before you deserve comfort. Notice which sentence makes your body react. Do not tear the frames from the walls. Walk slowly and observe them. The purpose is not to declare war against your history. It is to distinguish history from destiny. Place your fingertips against whichever imaginary frame feels familiar and breathe deeply. As you exhale, say inwardly, YESERAYE EFFATA. Let those words mark a conscious boundary between what you were taught and what you now choose to examine for yourself. Awareness is already an opening. At the end of the corridor, imagine Angel Abundia waiting beside a doorway filled with soft golden light. She does not command you to forget where you came from. She simply holds the door open. Behind you are inherited instructions. Ahead of you is conscious authorship. And there is one particular scarcity instruction hidden among the others that can quietly sabotage both earning and receiving. We are about to bring it into the light, because once you recognize it, many contradictory financial behaviors begin making sense. The instruction sounds something like this: if I become more prosperous, something important about me may be lost. Perhaps belonging feels threatened. Perhaps greater success seems connected with judgment, responsibility, visibility, or separation from people you love. A person can consciously desire greater financial resources, while another part quietly associate them with danger. That conflict does not mean you are incapable of prosperity. It means your internal map deserves curiosity rather than condemnation. Ask yourself gently, what did prosperity mean in the environment where I learned about life? Was it freedom, arrogance, Safety, conflict, generosity, stress, something reserved for other people? Do not search for a perfect answer. Let images and phrases surface naturally. You may remember a kitchen conversation, an argument behind a closed door, someone celebrating a purchase, or someone criticizing another person's success. Tiny moments can become surprisingly durable instructions when they are repeated. Now imagine placing those instructions on a wide stone table beneath the golden doorway. One by one, read them without automatically accepting them. There is never enough. Is that an absolute truth, or a sentence shaped by particular circumstances? I must say yes to every opportunity. Is that wisdom or fear of another opportunity never arriving? I cannot enjoy what I earn. Is that responsibility or guilt wearing the clothing of discipline? Questions loosen beliefs that once seemed immovable. This is where the masculine current of decisive action becomes useful. It gives you the courage to examine the ledger, make the appointment, learn the skill, negotiate appropriately, establish the boundary, or confront a spending pattern you would rather ignore. Then the receptive current enters beside it, allowing you to hear new information without defensiveness and accept legitimate support without shame. Neither current rescues you. Together, they make conscious participation possible. Place both palms open in front of you. Imagine one hand holding everything you inherited about scarcity and the other holding everything you are capable of learning now. Feel the difference in their symbolic weight. One hand carries old voices. The other carries possibility, education, discernment, creativity, relationships, useful skills, and choices not yet made. Whisper YESERAYE EFFATA, and imagine bringing your hands together not to erase history, but to place present awareness above automatic repetition. And now, we arrive at the deeper secret beneath this practice. You do not become sovereign by pretending fear never existed. You become sovereign when fear can speak without automatically receiving authority. That distinction is essential, because the next time an opportunity appears, the old scarcity voice may still whisper exactly what it whispered yesterday. The transformation lies in what happens after the whisper, and I want you to feel that difference physically before we move any further. Imagine receiving an unexpected opportunity related to your work, creativity, business, career, or financial life. Notice the first internal reaction. Maybe excitement rises, followed immediately by suspicion. Maybe your mind searches for reasons you are unqualified. Perhaps urgency appears and tells you to accept before understanding the conditions. Instead of obeying either excitement or fear, imagine breathing slowly and allowing your feet to feel heavy against the ground. You have time to discern. Say inwardly, I receive without surrendering discernment. I can act without surrendering peace. Notice the balance contained inside those sentences. Receiving does not require navet. Action does not require desperation. You can investigate. You can ask questions. You can seek appropriate professional guidance when a financial decision requires expertise. You can decline what does not serve you and pursue what deserves your effort. This is how spiritual alignment becomes behavior rather than decoration. Now return to the ancestral corridor and notice something extraordinary. The sentences inside the frames have not vanished, but the letters appear lighter. They no longer occupy the entire wall. Beyond them, you can finally see the stone, the architecture, the doorway, the path. This is what happens when an inherited belief becomes visible. It stops being the whole landscape and becomes one object within it. You can examine it, question it, and decide how much authority it deserves. Perhaps your family taught you extraordinary virtues alongside scarcity: resourcefulness, discipline, persistence, generosity, endurance, ingenuity. Keep those. Breaking an inherited pattern does not require rejecting your lineage. It can mean carrying forward its strength while leaving behind assumptions that no longer fit your circumstances. Imagine gathering those useful qualities into a warm golden cloth and placing it around your shoulders. The wisdom remains. The fear does not have to remain in command. Feel the weight of that cloth. It is not the weight of gold bars or promised riches. It is the symbolic weight of capability. You have survived decisions before. You have learned things you once did not know. You have adapted when circumstances changed. Those capacities are part of your real prosperity infrastructure. Money matters, financial resources matter, cash flow matters, but the human capacities that influence how you handle them matter too. This is where the harvest begins underground, and this leads us toward another threshold. If inherited scarcity can become associated with certain words, situations, and sensations, can you deliberately create a new association, one that returns you to clarity whenever the old pattern activates? That is where YESERAYE EFFATA becomes more than a phrase repeated during meditation. It becomes a personal signal. Stop, breathe, observe, choose. Soon, we will build that association deliberately and give it a specific purpose. Before we do, imagine Angel Abundia lifting one of the empty frames from the corridor wall. The old sentence disappears, leaving clean space behind the glass. She offers the frame to you. What sentence would you place there now? Not an impossible guarantee like wealth will always come easily. Choose something grounded enough that you can live it. Perhaps, I am capable of making clearer financial choices. Or, receiving and responsibility can coexist in me. Let your own sentence appear. Say it once without forcing emotion. Then breathe. Say it again, and notice whether some part of you resists it. That resistance is useful information, not failure. You are discovering where the old blueprint still has roots. Whisper YESERAYE EFFATA, and imagine golden light passing behind the words you chose, not magically making them true, but illuminating the behavior required to embody them. Belief becomes powerful when action gives it evidence. If this practice is revealing something meaningful, you can declare your readiness in the comments with a sentence that represents the pattern you are choosing now. Keep it personal and grounded. I choose discernment over scarcity, or I can receive without fear. Let the declaration mark intention rather than expectation of an instant reward. The real work continues when the screen goes dark, and you meet the next ordinary decision with a different internal posture. Look once more down the corridor behind you. It stretches farther than you can see, carrying stories you may never completely know. You do not need to solve every story. You do not need to excavate every memory before moving forward. Take what becomes visible, lit it with compassion, and choose what deserves continuation. Ahead, the golden doorway remains open, and beyond it waits something different from another belief. A ritual of attention designed to interrupt the old automatic response. Step toward that doorway now. Feel the temperature change as the golden light reaches your face and hands. Behind the threshold, YESERAYE EFFATA will become our anchor for inner permission, the permission to pause before reacting, to receive without guilt, to move without panic, and to let prosperity become a conscious practice rather than a battle against yourself. The corridor has shown you what you carried. Now, we begin deciding what you will carry forward. Stand with me at the golden doorway, but do not cross it yet. There is power in remaining at a threshold long enough to recognize what you are leaving behind and what you are choosing to enter. Feel the imaginary warmth against your face. Behind you rests the corridor of inherited instructions. Ahead stretches an unfamiliar openness. Place your hand over your heart and breathe slowly. Then allow the words to rise without strain. YESERAYE EFFATA. I want these words to become an anchor rather than a promise of supernatural financial reward. When I speak them, I use them as a deliberate interruption, a signal that I do not have to obey the first fearful thought entering my mind. I can pause. I can observe. I can choose. That tiny interval between reaction and decision may seem insignificant, yet entire patterns can begin changing there. A sovereign life is built through moments in which consciousness interrupts habit. Say it again. YESERAYE EFFATA. Imagine the phrase moving through you like the low vibration of a distant bell, not loud enough to disturb the room, but deep enough to command your attention. Feel your breathing become slower. Let your jaw release. Let your fingers soften. You are not trying to force yourself into an artificial state of positivity. You are creating enough internal quiet to distinguish what is happening from what fear predicts might happen. Now cross the threshold. Beyond it, imagine a vast chamber with no ceiling, only an immense midnight sky scattered with stars. In the center stands a circular platform surrounded by shallow golden water. Every step sends small rings across its surface. Angel Abundia waits on the opposite side, her presence representing generosity, possibility, and divine supply, rather than guaranteed material outcomes. Between you and her stands a single and open gate. That gate represents permission. Most people think they need permission from the world to prosper. Permission from family, permission from circumstances, permission from their past, permission from people who may never understand the direction their life is taking. Yet some of the strongest prohibitions are internal. Do not become too visible. Do not ask for more. Do not charge appropriately. Do not outgrow familiar limits. Do not receive too easily. Listen carefully, because the gate before you does not open by fighting those voices. It opens when you stop treating them as commands. And this brings us to something hidden inside the phrase we have been repeating. The deepest opening is not a door through which wealth magically enters. It is the opening of your own attention the moment you become capable of seeing a choice where yesterday you saw only an automatic reaction. In just a moment, I will guide you through that gate. But first we need to recognize the invisible lock that keeps so many people standing outside it. Imagine that lock forming in front of you. It is made from 4 sensations rather than urgency, guilt, fear, and unworthiness. Urgency says, decide now or everything disappears. Guilt says, receiving more means someone else receives less. Fear says, if circumstances improve, you will eventually lose everything. And unworthiness whispers most quietly, who are you to desire a richer life? Do not argue, just hear them. What is named can finally be examined. Place your hand against the imaginary gate and breathe. YESERAYE EFFATA. With the first breath, allow urgency to loosen its grip. With the second, allow guilt to become visible instead of invisible. With the third, notice fear without giving it the final vote. With the fourth, question the assumption that your worth must be earned through exhaustion. The gate does not explode open. It moves slowly, almost silently, because genuine inner permission rarely arrives as spectacle. Walk through. Notice how different the air feels on the other side. Nothing external has magically changed, yet your position has. You are no longer standing before your own permission, waiting for someone else to grant it. Feel your feet against the ground and imagine saying, I permit myself to learn. I permit myself to receive fairly. I permit myself to create value. I permit myself to make thoughtful decisions about wealth. These are not predictions. They are commitments. Now visualize a practical situation from your financial life. Perhaps someone offers you work, and you instinctively undervalue your contribution. Perhaps an opportunity appears and fear tells you that you are incapable before you investigate it. Maybe you repeatedly postpone looking at your finances because numbers activate discomfort. Whatever appears, imagine inserting one breath before your habitual reaction. That breath is the doorway. Inside it, silently repeat, YESERAYE EFFATA. Then ask 3 quiet questions. What is actually true here? What am I assuming? What action would respect both my peace and my responsibility? Feel how these questions change the atmosphere. They pull you away from vague fear and toward discernment. They do not guarantee that every decision will succeed. No spiritual practice can remove uncertainty from financial life, but you can become more deliberate about how you meet uncertainty. And that alone changes the quality of your participation. And now, the golden water surrounding the platform begins to move. Not towards you, and not away from you. It circles. This is the image I want you to remember, because prosperity is rarely a straight line from desire to possession. Resources circulate through work, exchange, creativity, relationships, planning, generosity, investment, learning, correction, and time. The current changes direction repeatedly. Your task is not to control the entire ocean. It is to navigate the portion touching your life. Reach your hands toward the water. Feel its imagined warmth against your palms. Let it represent every legitimate form of supply that supports a human life. Knowledge, opportunity, assistance, skill, time, relationships, creativity, courage, and financial resources. Notice that money belongs within the picture without becoming the entire picture. Spiritual wealth does not require pretending material needs do not exist. It asks you to meet those needs without allowing them to define the whole measure of your existence. There is another secret here, and it changes the meaning of receiving. You may have assumed receiving means waiting for something to arrive, but mature reception is active. It notices, it evaluates, it recognizes, it allows. A useful idea can arrive and still require execution. An opportunity can appear and still require preparation. Support can be offered and still require the courage to say yes. The chalice does not chase the rain, but it must remain open when the rain comes. Imagine Angel Abundia lifting a golden chalice from the circular platform. She holds it beneath the sky that has begun glowing with a soft amber light. No coins fall from above. No instant fortune appears. Instead, the chalice fills with symbols: a key representing access, a seed representing development, a compass representing discernment, and a small flame representing initiative. These are the forms of abundance I want you to recognize before the harvest becomes visible. Every outcome begins somewhere less dramatic. Take the symbolic chalice into your hands. Feel its cool rim and unexpected weight. Inside it, the key, seed, compass, and flame rest together. Ask yourself which one your life requires most right now. Perhaps you need access to new information. Perhaps something must be patiently developed. Perhaps you need direction before movement. Perhaps you already know what to do and simply need to begin. There is no universal answer because prosperity is not a mechanical formula. Whisper YESERAYE EFFATA once more. Imagine the symbol you chose glowing slightly brighter than the others. Then connect it to one small action you could realistically take. If you chose the key, perhaps research or a conversation is needed. If you chose the seed, consistency may matter more than intensity. If you chose the compass, pause and gather information. If you chose the flame, take the responsible first step you have been postponing. This is how I understand the bridge between spiritual practice and financial behavior. The inner world influences how we interpret circumstances. Our interpretation influences our choices. Repeated choices shape patterns over time. There is mystery in life, and there are circumstances no mindset can fully control. Yet within that uncertainty, we still possess meaningful agency. I do not need spirituality to deny reality. I want spirituality to help me meet reality with greater clarity, courage, and steadiness. Now notice the golden chamber beginning to disappear around you. The stars fade first, then the platform, then the water. Angel Abundia remains for one final moment beside the open gate. What stays with you is not the architecture of the visualization, but the internal sequence. Pause, breathe, observe, choose. YESERAYE EFFATA. Those words can remind you of the sequence whenever scarcity tries to collapse a complex situation into a single frightened reaction. And this is the bridge I promised earlier. Once permission is established, the next question becomes unavoidable. What happens when you stop merely opening the gate and begin living as the channel itself? Because receiving abundance without becoming capable of holding, directing, and circulating resources creates another imbalance. The golden current needs structure. The ocean needs banks. The harvest needs hands willing to gather it. Our next threshold is therefore not about asking for more, it is about becoming available without becoming passive. If you feel your relationship with receiving becoming more spacious, you can declare your readiness in the comments with a grounded affirmation such as, "I give myself permission to receive and respond wisely." Let the words represent intention, not a bargain for an instant result. Then carry one practical action from this meditation into your day. A spiritual insight becomes stronger when your ordinary behavior begins reflecting it. That is where the invisible becomes embodied. Take one final breath and feel your hands again. They can open and they can build. They can receive and they can release. They can hold resources without clenching around them in fear. This is the dual capacity we have been restoring from the beginning. The gate is behind you now. Ahead, the golden current widens into something greater, a living channel where action and attraction no longer compete, and sovereignty begins to take physical form. There comes a moment when opening yourself is no longer enough. You can stand beneath an endless sky with your hands raised, whispering your intentions with absolute sincerity, yet life will still place certain doors before you that require your hand on the handle. This is where I see spiritual abundance becoming embodied. Receptivity makes me available to possibility, but sovereignty asks me to recognize what belongs to me to do. The current can reach my feet. I still decide whether I will enter it. Imagine yourself standing beside a wide river at dawn. The water moves steadily, carrying reflections of amber clouds across its surface. There is no frantic speed, yet nothing is stagnant. Listen inwardly to the continuous sound of movement against the stones. This river does not chase its destination, and it does not refuse movement in the name of surrender. It follows its course. I want you to feel that distinction inside your body, direction without desperation, motion without violence against yourself. For many people, receiving has become confused with passivity. They wait for certainty before beginning, permission before speaking, confidence before applying, perfect conditions before creating. But I have discovered that confidence often arrives after movement has already begun. A door may become visible only because I walk down the corridor. A relationship may become possible because I initiated the conversation. A financial opportunity may become recognizable because I developed the knowledge required to understand it. Reception and preparation quietly strengthen each other. Now extend your hands in front of you and imagine a narrow stream of golden light moving toward your palms. Do not picture cash falling from nowhere. Let this current represent usable possibility, information, ideas, relationships, creativity, opportunities, time, knowledge, and legitimate financial resources. Notice that your hands must remain open to receive it. Then imagine turning your palms downward and allowing some of that light to move through them into the world. Receiving becomes meaningful when it can become contribution. This is the sovereign channel, open at one end, active at the other. It does not hoard every possibility from fear, nor does it pour itself empty trying to prove generosity. It receives, evaluates, directs, preserves, creates, and circulates. And there is a subtle reason some people repeatedly close this channel without noticing it. It happens at the exact moment an opportunity demands a response, rather than another affirmation, and that moment is where we are going next. Think about the last time you recognized something you genuinely wanted to pursue. Maybe you felt the initial spark immediately. This could matter. Then another voice entered. Wait until you know more. Wait until you feel ready. Wait until someone validates you. Wait until the conditions become perfect. Discernment is wise, but endless postponement can imitate discernment so convincingly that years pass unnoticed. Sovereignty requires learning the difference between a meaningful pause and fear disguised as preparation. Bring one unfinished action into your awareness now. Keep it realistic and specific. Perhaps there is an email you need to send, a budget you need to examine, a skill you need to research, a conversation you need to initiate, or an idea you need to test carefully. Notice what happens in your body when you imagine actually doing it. Breathe into that sensation instead of escaping it. Then say quietly, YESERAYE EFFATA. Let the phrase interrupt the old reflex. Ask yourself, do I need more information, or am I waiting for the absence of discomfort? Those are very different conditions. You may never receive complete certainty before an important step. You can still gather appropriate information, understand reasonable risks, seek qualified guidance when necessary, and choose responsibly. Inner alignment is not reckless confidence. It is the ability to move without demanding that uncertainty disappear first. Now imagine Angel Abundia standing in the river before you. The current reaches her waist, yet she remains steady. In one hand she holds an empty vessel, in the other, a small golden paddle. The symbolism is simple. One hand receives, the other directs. The vessel without the paddle can collect, but cannot navigate. The paddle without the vessel can move endlessly while carrying nothing. Your prosperity blueprint needs both capacities alive at the same time. Step symbolically into the river. Feel the coolness around your ankles, then your knees. Notice the pressure of the current against your legs. This is what participation feels like. Life does not stop moving while you decide what to do. Circumstances change. Markets change. Relationships change. Your own priorities change. Sovereignty is not controlling every current. It is learning how to keep your footing while making thoughtful choices inside movement. And now, we reach the bridge I promised earlier. There is a question more revealing than how can I attract more? It is this: what would I do differently if I genuinely trusted myself to respond wisely to what arrives? Stay with that question, because the answer exposes where abundance has been reduced to acquisition when it should also include stewardship, discernment, boundaries, and the courage to participate. Perhaps you would stop saying yes to everything because you fear another opportunity will never appear. Perhaps you would ask clearer questions before committing resources. Maybe you would finally learn where your cash flow actually goes instead of avoiding the numbers. Perhaps you would develop one valuable skill instead of scattering your attention across 10 possibilities. The frequency of prosperity, in this sense, is not frantic expansion. Sometimes it sounds like a calm, unmistakable no. Feel the power of that word without aggression. No to an expense that does not serve your priorities. No to an arrangement that consistently undervalues your contribution. No to comparison disguised as ambition. No to compulsive urgency. No to treating exhaustion as proof of worthiness. Every meaningful yes requires boundaries around it. A river without banks becomes a flood. With structure, the same water can nourish an entire landscape. Your boundaries are not enemies of abundance. Now see the riverbanks beside you becoming brighter. One side represents your values, the other represents your practical limits. Between them flows your available energy, time, attention, and financial resources. You do not need unlimited resources to begin practicing stewardship. You need awareness of what is actually available and intentionality about where it goes. This is not glamorous work, but many forms of prosperity are built in decisions so ordinary that nobody applauds them. Imagine placing one coin into your palm not as a promise, simply as a symbol of resource. Feel its cool surface and slight weight. Ask yourself, what does responsible receiving mean to me? Maybe it means gratitude without guilt. Maybe it means preserving part of what you receive. Maybe it means using resources to create stability, support people you care about, invest in your development, or build something meaningful. Your answer should belong to your real life. Now close your fingers gently around the symbolic coin. Notice the difference between holding and clenching. Holding says, I can care for this. Clenching says, if I loosen my grip, everything will disappear. Scarcity often turns stewardship into fear. Prosperity consciousness does not require careless spending or compulsive generosity. It allows resources to be treated with respect without becoming objects of worship. Open your hand again and breathe. YESERAYE EFFATA. I want you to imagine the golden current moving through your palm once more. This time, it travels upward through your arms and settles behind your chest like warm sunlight. Let that warmth symbolize capacity rather than possession, the capacity to learn, create, negotiate, organize, serve, adjust, and begin again after mistakes. External resources can fluctuate. Human capability can also grow. When you strengthen both, your relationship with material prosperity becomes less dependent on fear and more connected to conscious participation. There is another layer here, because action itself can become addictive when it protects us from uncertainty. Some people keep moving because stillness would force them to admit they no longer know why they are pursuing what they pursue. More work, more projects, more targets, more noise. Yet an unstoppable life is not one that never rests. It is one that can stop long enough to determine whether its direction still deserves its energy. This is why the sovereign channel must remain open in both directions. Action sends energy outward. Receptivity brings information inward. When you act, observe what happens. When you receive feedback, adjust. When circumstances change, listen again. This rhythm prevents spiritual surrender from becoming avoidance, and prevents ambition from becoming blind momentum. You are neither a stone waiting beside the river nor debris carried wherever the current chooses. You are learning to navigate. And this leads us toward the next mystery. What happens when action itself becomes lighter, when you no longer need panic, comparison, or fear to generate momentum. Can you still pursue meaningful financial growth without treating every goal like a battle for survival? I believe you can. There is a form of movement that feels almost paradoxical, disciplined yet spacious, ambitious yet peaceful, focused yet receptive. That is the golden current we are about to enter. Before we leave this river, choose one action, not 10, not an entire reinvention of your financial life. One movement that respects both reality and your emerging sovereignty. See yourself completing it. Notice the environment, the screen, the conversation, the notebook, the numbers, whatever belongs to that action. Then attach your contemplative anchor to the beginning of it. YESERAYE EFFATA. Pause, breathe, observe, choose, move. If your resonance is shifting, declare your readiness in the comments with an affirmation grounded in agency. I receive with discernment, and I move with clarity. Let it remind you that prosperity is neither endless pursuit nor passive expectation. Then carry your chosen action beyond this moment. A sacred blueprint becomes useful when it enters ordinary Tuesday mornings, difficult conversations, budgets, decisions, creative work, and the quiet choices nobody else sees. Now step out of the imaginary river and feel the ground beneath your feet. Behind you, the water continues moving without asking you to chase it. Ahead, a narrow golden path appears beneath the first full light of morning. Angel Abundia turns toward that path, and the paddle in her hand becomes a slender flame. We have learned to receive without becoming passive. Now, we must learn to move without becoming frantic. Follow that flame, because the next chapter belongs to action stripped of desperation, the ancient art of directing your energy without turning your life into a battlefield. There we will meet the golden current, where discipline replaces pressure, clarity replaces hustle, and your hands become instruments not merely for reaching toward abundance, but for creating, protecting, and wisely directing the harvest already beginning to take form. Follow the slender flame until the river disappears behind you and the ground beneath your feet becomes warm, almost sunlit from within. Ahead, imagine a vast field just before harvest, every stalk bending beneath its own quiet weight. Nothing in this field is rushing, yet everything has been working. Seeds opened underground, roots searched through darkness, rain arrived and disappeared, sunlight returned again and again. The harvest looks effortless only because you did not witness every invisible act that created it. This is the difference I want you to feel between strain and sustained action. Strain screams, more, faster now. Sustained action asks, what matters, and what can I faithfully do next? One burns through attention as though energy were disposable. The other directs attention like water through an irrigation channel. I do not need to attack my future to build it. I need enough clarity to recognize what deserves repetition, enough patience to improve it, and enough courage to continue when immediate evidence is incomplete. Walk deeper into the field and let your fingertips brush against the grain. Feel the dry texture against your skin and hear the soft rustling carried by the wind. Somewhere beyond the horizon, imagine the low sound of water moving through narrow channels. This is prosperity without spectacle. Systems quietly supporting growth. A useful habit, a carefully developed skill, a responsible budget, a meaningful relationship, a piece of work improved through repetition. Financial flow often rests upon structures nobody celebrates. Now raise your hands and imagine the golden current we encountered earlier returning through your palms. This time, however, it does not simply enter you. It responds to direction. Move your right hand forward and imagine the current following it like liquid sunlight. Move your left hand toward your heart and watch another stream return inward. Action, feedback, adjustment, action again. Whisper YESERAYE EFFATA and allow the rhythm to settle into your breathing. You are beginning to discover why relentless hustle can sometimes produce less clarity rather than more progress. When everything becomes urgent, nothing receives deliberate attention. When every possibility becomes an obligation, your energy fragments into pieces too small to build anything substantial. There is a hidden discipline beneath abundance that rarely appears glamorous, choosing what you will not pursue. And in a moment, I will show you why subtraction can become one of the most powerful forms of prosperous action. Imagine 10 golden paths suddenly appearing across the field. Each one promises something interesting. One represents a new project, another a new strategy, another somebody else's definition of success. Several paths sparkle brightly because novelty naturally attracts attention, but you have only one pair of feet. You cannot walk 10 roads deeply at the same time, and pretending otherwise creates movement without meaningful distance. Sovereignty begins when you stop confusing possibility with obligation. Look at those paths and ask, which direction deserves my energy in this season? Not forever. Not for the rest of your life. Right now. Perhaps your financial life needs stabilization before expansion. Perhaps your work needs deeper skill rather than another project. Maybe your next harvest depends on finishing something instead of beginning something. The answer may feel less exciting than the glittering alternatives. Do not underestimate quiet clarity simply because it does not produce adrenaline. Choose one imaginary path and watch the others gradually dim. Notice whether your mind resists. Scarcity may whisper, but what if one of those other paths contains the opportunity I need? This is where trust becomes practical. You cannot eliminate every missed possibility. You can only make thoughtful choices with the information available, remain attentive to feedback, and adjust when necessary. The sovereign person does not demand omniscience before moving. They accept uncertainty without surrendering discernment. Begin walking. With every step, imagine the golden current becoming denser around your feet, not as magical energy altering external events, but as a visual representation of concentrated attention. One step becomes one completed task. Another becomes a difficult conversation handled directly. Another becomes an hour invested in learning something valuable. Another becomes a financial decision made after examining the facts rather than reacting to emotion. Small movements begin forming a road beneath you. Now pause and place your hand over your abdomen. Ask yourself where strain lies when you think about prosperity. Perhaps it feels like a knot beneath your ribs, heat in your face, heaviness behind your eyes, or an impulse to keep checking whether something has changed. You do not need to force that sensation away. Breathe around it. Let your body receive the message that purposeful action does not require permanent emergency. Then whisper again, YESERAYE EFFATA. Here is the secret hidden inside subtraction. Every meaningful commitment consumes something. Time, attention, emotional bandwidth, sometimes capital, sometimes opportunity itself. When you say yes unconsciously, you spend resources before realizing you have spent them. This is why protecting attention belongs inside the architecture of prosperity. Your calendar is a form of allocation. Your focus is a form of capital. Where you repeatedly place them influences what you become capable of building. Picture Angel Abundia now walking beside you through the field. Instead of carrying overflowing coins, she carries a simple golden sickle, an ancient symbol of harvest. But notice what she does not do. She does not cut every stalk in sight. She moves deliberately, gathering what is ready and leaving what still needs time. That distinction matters. Mature abundance recognizes timing rather than demanding that every seed become a harvest on the same morning. Look at something in your life that may still need time. Perhaps you have been judging yourself because a project, skill, career transition, or financial goal has not matured as quickly as you hoped. Ask whether more force would truly help, or whether consistent cultivation is what the situation requires. Some results cannot be bullied into existence. They respond to preparation, repetition, feedback, adjustment, and time. Patience becomes powerful when it remains connected to action. Now imagine kneeling and touching the soil beneath the stalks. It is dark, cool, almost black against the golden field above it. Nobody applauds the soil, yet the visible harvest depends upon what happened there. Your unseen practices are like this ground. The quiet hour spent learning, the expense you chose not to make, the boundary you finally established, the work completed when motivation was absent. These actions rarely feel dramatic, but they create infrastructure beneath visible prosperity. Take a handful of imaginary soil and allow it to fall slowly through your fingers. Feel its texture. Listen to the faint sound as it returns to the earth. This is where I want your understanding of manifestation to become more grounded. Intention can orient attention. Visualization can help clarify what matters. Spiritual practice can support reflection and persistence. Then your hands still meet the world. You decide, practice, communicate, create, correct, save, learn, and sometimes begin again. There is no contradiction between sacred imagination and practical responsibility. I can visualize a richer future while examining present reality. I can hold a frequency of prosperity as an inspirational metaphor while admitting when something needs correction. I can trust divine supply spiritually without pretending every financial outcome lies within my control. This balance protects the practice from fantasy while preserving its beauty. The infinite ocean can inspire me without becoming an excuse to ignore the condition of my boat. And this brings us to another curiosity bridge. If action can exist without strain, what happens when the opposite current receiving also becomes free from guilt? Because some people learn how to work beautifully and still struggle when life offers support, recognition, compensation, affection, or rest. Their hands know how to produce, yet close automatically when something returns. Soon, we will examine that closed hand. But first, the golden current must teach us one final movement. Stand again, and imagine the harvest extending toward the horizon. Choose one stalk and hold it gently. It represents something you have already cultivated, not necessarily financial success, but a capacity you possess because you invested effort over time. Maybe resilience, professional skill, creativity, communication, patience, discipline. Name it internally. Do not minimize it merely because it has become familiar to you. Familiar strengths often become invisible precisely because we carry them every day. Now ask, how can this capacity create greater value without requiring me to become someone I am not? Stay with the question instead of demanding an immediate answer. Perhaps the next level of prosperity comes from refining what already works rather than constantly searching for something new. A skill can deepen, a relationship can strengthen, a service can improve, a process can become more efficient. Expansion does not always mean adding. Sometimes the harvest grows because cultivation becomes more precise. Imagine the golden current gathering around that single stalk until it glows warmly between your fingers. Say YESERAYE EFFATA and breathe. Let the phrase remind you of the sequence we have built. Pause, observe, choose, move. Then add one more word internally. Continue. Not frantically, not endlessly. Continue long enough to collect meaningful information about what your effort is producing, and remain willing to change course when evidence asks you to. If this resonates, declare your readiness in the comments with a grounded affirmation. I move with purpose, not panic. Let those words become a commitment to disciplined action rather than a prediction about financial outcomes. Then identify one activity in your life that deserves more concentrated attention and one distraction that deserves less. That simple exchange may return more usable energy than another hour spent worrying about whether you are doing enough. Now watch the sun begin lowering over the field. The golden stalks turn amber and the long shadows soften the landscape. Angel Abundia places the sickle on the earth and extends both empty hands toward you. This gesture contains the next teaching. Hands that have worked must also learn to open. The person who knows only how to give, produce, solve, rescue, and carry can eventually become trapped by their own strength. Come closer and notice your palms. How easily do you receive something without immediately planning how to repay it? How comfortable are you with fair compensation, genuine recognition, legitimate assistance, rest after meaningful effort, or an opportunity that does not arrive wrapped in struggle? These questions take us beyond the golden field toward the chalice waiting at its edge. Because action has now found its rhythm, the next initiation belongs to receiving. The field becomes quiet behind us as evening arrives. Ahead stands a stone altar illuminated by a single warm flame, and upon it rests the same golden chalice we encountered before. This time it is empty, waiting not for miraculous riches, but for your willingness to receive without shrinking, apologizing, or confusing suffering with worthiness. Walk toward it with me. The golden current has taught your hands how to create. Now, the chalice will teach them how to remain open. Stand before the stone altar and look at the empty chalice resting beneath the flame. There is something almost uncomfortable about its openness. It does not chase, persuade, prove, or apologize. It simply remains available to receive what can legitimately enter it. I want you to notice what happens inside you when you imagine living with that same openness. For many people, creating feels honorable, giving feels natural, working feels safe, but receiving activates an entirely different emotion. Sometimes that emotion is guilt. Perhaps you know the strange reflex I mean. Someone compliments your work and you immediately minimize it. Someone offers help and your first instinct is, no, and handle it. You receive payment and part of you wonders whether you truly earned it. You finally rest after sustained effort and an internal voice accuses you of wasting time. These reactions can become so familiar that they masquerade as humility. But humility does not require you to reject what is fair, healthy, or genuinely offered. Imagine lifting the chalice from the altar. Feel the cool metal against your palms and the weight settling into your hands. It is empty, yet it already asks something from you. Remain open. Now, picture a thin stream of golden water descending into it, not currency appearing from nowhere, but a symbol of legitimate support. Let each drop represent something different: appreciation, opportunity, knowledge, assistance, fair compensation, time, friendship, creative insight. Watch how slowly the vessel fills. Notice whether some part of you wants to pour it out immediately. Maybe you learned that receiving creates obligation, that accepting support makes you weak, or that prosperity becomes morally safer only when you immediately give everything away. Generosity can be beautiful, but compulsive giving can sometimes hide discomfort with having. There is a difference between freely circulating resources and making yourself empty because fullness feels forbidden. Breathe into that distinction and whisper, YESERAYE EFFATA. Let the phrase become the familiar interruption. Pause, observe, choose. You do not need to reject generosity, and you do not need to become possessive. You can receive, hold, evaluate, and decide deliberately what happens next. This is the mystery hidden inside the chalice. Capacity matters as much as openness. And in a moment, I will show you why expanding your ability to hold prosperity may matter more than constantly demanding that greater quantities arrive. Imagine the chalice growing slightly larger between your hands. Its expansion represents your ability to tolerate greater responsibility without collapsing into fear. Because receiving more can mean managing more, deciding more carefully, maintaining stronger boundaries, and becoming more deliberate about where resources flow. Spiritual wealth is not simply the sensation of having access to an infinite ocean. It also includes becoming a trustworthy steward of whatever portion of that ocean passes through your life. Ask yourself, what happens emotionally when I imagine having more than enough for my immediate needs? Do you feel relief, excitement, suspicion? Perhaps guilt appears because someone else has less. Compassion for others is meaningful, but your deprivation does not automatically improve another person's circumstances. You can pursue stability and generosity together. You can build resources while maintaining integrity. Prosperity does not require indifference, and compassion does not require permanent scarcity. Now imagine Angel Abundia approaching the altar. In this visualization, her hands are completely empty. That matters. She does not hand you a guaranteed fortune, a winning number, or a supernatural shortcut around effort and uncertainty. Instead, she touches the rim of the chalice and invites you to notice what you are already capable of holding. Knowledge, experience, relationships, discipline, creativity, lessons earned through difficult seasons. Your inventory is larger than your bank balance alone can describe. Look into the golden water and imagine its surface becoming a mirror. Instead of your face, see moments when you contributed real value, a problem you solved, a person you helped, a responsibility you carried, a skill you developed slowly enough that you forgot how difficult it once felt. Allow these images to appear without turning them into proof that the universe owes you a reward. They are evidence of capacity, and capacity deserves to be recognized before it can be directed wisely. Now speak inwardly. I receive fair value without shrinking. Take a breath. I can accept support without surrendering my independence. Another breath. I can experience rest without treating exhaustion as a virtue. Notice which sentence creates resistance. That resistance is not an enemy. It may be pointing directly toward the part of your prosperity blueprint that still associate receiving with danger. And this is where the deeper secret appears. Sometimes people are not afraid of failing financially. They are afraid of what succeeding might require them to become. More visible, more responsible, more decisive, more willing to disappoint people who benefited from their lack of boundaries. Greater resources can change choices, relationships, and expectations. So the question beneath "can I receive?" may actually be, can I remain myself while my circumstances expand? My answer is that expansion does not have to mean self-betrayal. You can carry more resources without abandoning tenderness. You can become more financially secure without making wealth your identity. You can charge fairly without losing generosity. You can protect what you build without closing your heart. Sovereignty means your values travel with you. The person standing beside a fuller chalice can remain connected to the same integrity that guided them when the vessel was nearly empty. Hold the chalice closer to your chest. Imagine warmth moving from the metal into your hands. Feel your shoulders soften as you allow yourself to hold, rather than immediately distribute what you receive. There is a season for circulation and a season for preservation. A farmer does not consume every seed after harvest. Some is stored, some replanted, some exchanged, some shared. Prosperity develops intelligence when resources are given different purposes instead of being governed entirely by impulse. Think of your own financial resources in that way. Whatever their current amount, imagine them as seeds requiring conscious direction. Some support immediate living. Some may protect future stability. Some can support development or meaningful experiences. Some may eventually serve generosity. The exact allocation belongs to your circumstances and, when needed, qualified financial guidance, not to a universal spiritual formula. What matters here is the internal shift from unconscious reaction toward intentional stewardship. Say YESERAYE EFFATA again, and imagine the golden water becoming completely still. No ripples, no urgency. Look into its surface and ask, what am I afraid receiving will say about me? Maybe the answer is selfish, lucky, different, visible, responsible, powerful. Whatever word appears, hold it gently. Then ask a second question. Is that belief necessarily true? Give yourself enough silence to hear something deeper than the automatic response. Perhaps you will recognize that receiving and generosity were never enemies. A person who knows how to receive can sometimes give from fullness rather than depletion. A person who accepts fair compensation can build greater stability around their work. Someone who receives appropriate help can preserve energy for responsibilities that truly require them. This is not an argument for endless accumulation. It is an invitation to stop making unnecessary deprivation a spiritual achievement. Now imagine the chalice overflowing by a single drop. Watch that drop travel down the side, across your fingers, and fall onto the earth. Where it lands, a tiny green shoot appears. Let this remain symbolic. What is received consciously can sometimes support new creation. Resources can become education. Time can become art. Support can become renewed capacity. Financial stability can create room for thoughtful choices. The harvest continues because receiving and creating belong to the same cycle. This brings us to the curiosity I want to carry forward. What happens when you no longer identify yourself primarily as the giver or the receiver, the pursuer or the attractor, the builder or the vessel? What if those identities begin dissolving into something more complete? We have spent this journey bringing two currents together, but integration eventually asks us to release the labels themselves. The river does not debate whether it is receiving rain or giving water to the valley. Set the chalice back onto the altar. Notice that your hands remain open after releasing it. This is important. Your openness does not depend on possessing the vessel. It has become a posture. Turn your palms upward and feel the cool imaginary night air moving across them. You are allowed to receive information, appreciation, legitimate opportunity, fair exchange, affection, rest, and assistance without interpreting each arrival through the lens of guilt. Receiving can be an act of participation. If this resonates with you, declare your readiness in the comments with an affirmation such as, "I receive with gratitude and steward with wisdom." Let it be a reminder of how you want to behave, not a demand placed upon the future. Then practice receiving something ordinary without minimizing it. When someone offers sincere appreciation, perhaps simply say, "Thank you." When appropriate support arrives, consider accepting it. Small acts teach the nervous system what abstract declarations cannot. Now, the flame above the altar begins to rise. It stretches upward until it becomes a column of warm golden light, and the distinction between the altar, the chalice, and the surrounding darkness starts to disappear. Angel Abundia steps into that light, not leaving you, but becoming part of the symbolism we have been building all along. Abundance no longer standing outside you as something to chase. The teaching begins turning inward. The two currents are ready to lose their names. Feel them now. The current of direction in one hand, the current of reception in the other. Bring your palms slowly together over your heart. YESERAYE EFFATA. No battle, no hierarchy, no requirement that one side dominate. There is simply a whole human being capable of moving and pausing, creating and receiving, protecting and sharing, choosing and adapting. This is where our journey finally moves beyond the binary. The chalice has taught you that openness does not mean weakness. The golden field taught you that action does not require strain. The river taught you that flow needs direction. Now, those teachings converge inside a single sovereign identity. Ahead, there are no separate paths marked masculine and feminine, action and attraction, effort and surrender. There is only one illuminated road, and the person walking it no longer needs to divide themselves in order to prosper. There is a moment when the two currents we have followed can no longer be distinguished. Bring your palms together over your heart and imagine the warmth of direction meeting the cool spaciousness of reception until neither sensation belongs to one side. What remains is not masculine defeating feminine or feminine softening masculine. It is wholeness. I want you to feel the relief of no longer asking which energy you should become. You were never meant to live as half of yourself. For a long time, spiritual language has often separated qualities that human beings naturally carry together. Strength gets placed on one side, tenderness on another. Action becomes one polarity, allowing becomes its opposite. But I can make a courageous decision while remaining deeply receptive. I can rest without surrendering ambition. I can protect what matters and still keep my heart open. When these capacities cooperate, I stop wasting precious attention maintaining an internal argument that never needed to exist. Imagine walking along the illuminated road that appeared beyond the altar. There are no signs telling you which side represents action and which represents attraction. The road simply moves forward beneath a violet pre-dawn sky. With each step, feel your body becoming more centered, as though scattered pieces of attention are returning home. You are not becoming someone new. You are gathering capacities that fear, conditioning, and old expectations may have convinced you to keep separate. Ahead stands a circular mirror framed in ancient gold. Walk toward it slowly. When you reach the mirror, do not imagine a richer version of yourself wearing symbols of luxury. See something subtler. Your posture is calm. Your eyes are alert. Your hands are relaxed. There is no frantic hunger in your expression, yet there is unmistakable direction. This is the sovereign self I want you to recognize. Receptive enough to notice, grounded enough to evaluate, courageous enough to act. Place your hand against the imaginary mirror. The surface moves like warm water beneath your palm. Say quietly, "YESERAYE EFFATA." Then watch every label written around the frame begin dissolving: giver, receiver, pursuer, attractor, masculine, feminine, successful, struggling. The labels fall away like thin sheets of gold leaf carried by wind. What remains is awareness capable of choosing different responses in different moments. That flexibility is not inconsistency. It is intelligence. And now, the mirror is about to reveal something we have been approaching since the beginning. The greatest friction was never between masculine and feminine energy themselves. It was between rigid identities that told you what you were allowed to do, feel, request, accept, protect, or desire. Once those identities loosen, a different relationship with prosperity becomes possible. And what appears behind this mirror will show us why sovereignty depends less on controlling outcomes and more on expanding your range of conscious response. The mirror becomes transparent. Beyond it, imagine a large room containing several doors. One requires you to initiate. Another asks you to wait. Another requires negotiation. One asks for courage. Another requires restraint. One may need a boundary. Another may ask you to receive assistance. There is no single prosperity behavior appropriate for every door. The unified self does not carry one response into every circumstance. It reads the room before deciding how to move. This is why I resist simplistic formulas for abundance. Sometimes greater financial stability may require increasing income. Sometimes it may require examining spending. Sometimes learning, patience, professional guidance, negotiation, or a change in direction becomes important. No affirmation can responsibly tell every person which door is theirs. Spiritual practice can help create the inner space from which the situation is examined more clearly. Then discernment must meet reality. Choose one of the imaginary doors. Perhaps it is the door marked initiate. Reach for the handle and notice whether fear appears. Now imagine choosing another marked receive. Does a different discomfort emerge? The unified prosperity self develops range. You learn that you can knock when knocking is required and remain still when waiting contains wisdom. You can ask clearly, receive graciously, decline firmly, revise humbly, and begin again without turning every adjustment into evidence of failure. Feel that flexibility moving through your shoulders and arms. Imagine your body no longer bracing for one permanent mode of survival. Breathe in and silently say, and receive. Breathe out and say, and create. Inhale, I can listen. Exhale, I can decide. Then pause naturally between breaths. Inside that pause, whisper YESERAYE EFFATA. The opposites are no longer opposites. They have become rhythm. Now, we arrive at the secret behind the transparent mirror. Financial sovereignty is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the growing ability to remain connected to your values while circumstances change. You may experience seasons of expansion and contraction. Opportunities may appear, disappear, transform, or require more preparation than expected. The unified self can respond without allowing every fluctuation to redefine personal worth. Your bank balance contains important information about resources. It does not contain the complete measurement of your human value. I want that distinction to settle deeply. If wealth becomes proof of worthiness, financial uncertainty becomes an attack on identity. Then decisions become emotionally overloaded. But when dignity remains separate from numbers, you can look at numbers more clearly. You can admit mistakes without becoming the mistake. You can seek guidance without interpreting it as weakness. You can celebrate progress without needing it to establish superiority. Detachment from financial identity can actually make responsible engagement easier. Imagine the room of doors disappearing and a vast open landscape replacing it. Mountains rise in the distance beneath a pale golden sky. A narrow stream moves through the valley, reflecting sunlight like molten metal. Angel Abundia appears beside the stream, but something has changed. She no longer stands ahead of you as though abundance were somewhere you needed to reach. She walks beside you, representing a principle you are learning to carry rather than an external prize you must pursue. Notice what she carries now. Nothing. No chalice. No vessel, no key, no flame. The symbols have served their purpose. She simply walks, and you walk beside her. This is the point where spiritual imagery must eventually return you to your own life. A visualization can open reflection, but tomorrow still contains conversations, choices, responsibilities, relationships, and practical realities. The sacred becomes meaningful when it changes how you meet the ordinary. Look down at the stream and see two colors moving through it. Gold and silver remain visible for several seconds, twisting around each other beneath the clear surface. Then the colors merge into one luminous current. Watch carefully as the distinction disappears. There is no loss in this merging. Neither current has been erased. Each has become more useful because it no longer spends its energy resisting the other. Ask yourself where you are still divided. Do you believe you must choose between ambition and peace? Between prosperity and integrity? Between receiving and generosity? Between spiritual depth and practical financial responsibility? Some choices in life are genuinely difficult, but these particular pairs do not have to be enemies. You can pursue growth while protecting your values. You can seek greater financial resources without allowing accumulation to become the center of your identity. Now, place both hands over your chest again. Imagine the unified current entering through your palms and settling around your heart like warm light. Say slowly, ambition does not require desperation. Breathe. My receptivity does not require passivity. Breathe again. My prosperity does not require self-betrayal. Then allow the familiar anchor to enter the silence. YESERAYE EFFATA. Let the words remind you of integration rather than acquisition. Something important happens when you stop wasting energy performing an identity. You no longer need to appear endlessly strong when support would help. You no longer need to appear spiritually detached when a financial problem requires practical attention. You do not need to call avoidance surrender or exhaustion ambition. The unified self can tell the truth about the moment. Truth conserves enormous energy because it removes the labor of pretending that reality is something other than what it is. And this leads us toward the next threshold. Integration can feel beautiful during contemplation, but how does it survive a grocery bill, a business decision, an unexpected expense, a difficult negotiation, or an ordinary morning when motivation disappears? This is where many spiritual practices remain unfinished. They create a powerful internal experience without building a bridge into behavior. Our next movement is that bridge, the moment the invisible blueprint becomes visible through repeated choices. Before we cross it, imagine standing beside the luminous stream with your future self on the opposite bank. Do not make that person impossibly wealthy or perfect. See someone slightly more grounded, more discerning, or capable of holding opportunity without panic. Notice one behavioral difference between that person and you today. Maybe they check their finances consistently. Maybe they protect their time. Perhaps they negotiate more clearly or finish what they begin. Choose only one difference. Now imagine crossing the stream and standing face to face with that version of yourself. There is no dramatic transformation, no lightning, no supernatural transaction. Your future self simply places one hand on your shoulder and communicates a quiet message. Practice what you already know. Feel how ordinary those words are and how demanding. Because information is abundant. Transformation asks for repetition. The harvest does not grow from knowing what seeds are. It grows from planting them. If you feel these two currents integrating within you, declare your readiness in the comments with a grounded affirmation. I create and receive from wholeness. Let it become a reminder rather than a prediction. Then choose the behavioral difference you just saw in your future self and practice it once, not someday when your circumstances become perfect. Give the insight one physical expression in your real life. The landscape begins to darken as evening settles over the mountains. The luminous stream continues flowing, but now enters cultivated land ahead, rows of earth prepared for planting, orchards heavy with fruit, storehouses waiting to be organized. This is where our symbolism changes. We are leaving the territory of internal reconciliation and entering the territory of stewardship. The question is no longer simply what you believe about abundance. The question becomes what your choices reveal about what you believe. Walk with me toward those fields. The soil is cool beneath your feet, and somewhere in the distance you can hear the slow movement of water through irrigation channels. The unified prosperity self has been born, but identity alone is not the harvest. Now, we cultivate it through behavior, boundaries, consistency, value, and deliberate financial choices. The spiritual blueprint is ready to touch the ground, and the ground is where every real harvest begins. Step into the cultivated field and feel how different this ground is from everything we crossed before. There are no mysterious gates here, no mirrors, no distant chambers glowing beneath the celestial sky. There is earth beneath your feet, water moving through narrow channels, tools resting beside unfinished rows. This is where prosperity becomes less glamorous and more powerful, because every spiritual insight eventually faces one uncompromising question: what will I actually do differently when I return to my ordinary life? I have seen beautiful intentions disappear because they were never given a physical expression. A person can feel expansive during meditation and still avoid the conversation that needs to happen. They can speak of divine supply while refusing to examine their own financial patterns. They can visualize opportunity while neglecting the skill that would prepare them to recognize or use it. I do not say this to diminish spiritual practice. I say it because I respect spiritual practice too much to leave it disconnected from behavior. Kneel beside the first row of dark soil and imagine holding a handful of seeds. Each seed represents a repeated choice, rather than a desired outcome. One might represent tracking where your resources go. Another might represent learning something valuable. Another could symbolize finishing work before chasing the next exciting idea. Another may represent asking for fair compensation or setting a necessary boundary. Look at the seeds in your palm. None appears impressive enough to contain a harvest. Yet that is precisely how beginnings often look. Choose one seed and press it into the earth. Feel the cool soil beneath your fingertips. Cover the seed gently and resist the urge to dig it back up 5 minutes later to check whether it is growing. This is where patience becomes practical. Repeatedly checking for immediate proof can consume the attention needed for cultivation. Do the work. Observe over an appropriate period. Adjust when evidence asks you to. Then breathe and whisper, YESERAYE EFFATA. Let those words interrupt the demand for instant evidence. You are planting behavior, not ordering the universe to produce an immediate result. And this leads us towards something I promised we would eventually uncover: the difference between wanting abundance and becoming capable of sustaining healthier patterns around it. Because a harvest is not merely what arrives. A harvest also reveals what you prepared to cultivate, protect, gather, preserve, and use wisely once it arrived. Walk toward the irrigation channel beside the field. The water is clear, steady, controlled by small gates, placed at deliberate intervals. Imagine those gates representing your boundaries. Without them, water floods one section while leaving another dry. Your attention behaves similarly. So can your time and financial resources. When everything receives equal access to you, the priorities you claim to value may receive almost nothing. A sovereign life requires deciding what gets through the gate. Ask yourself where one gate needs adjusting. Perhaps too much attention leaks into comparison. Perhaps impulsive purchases temporarily soothe an emotion that deserves another form of care. Maybe other people's demands consume the time you intended to invest in your own development. Or perhaps you have become so restrictive that fear prevents reasonable enjoyment or useful investment in yourself. Stewardship is not automatically about tightening every gate. It is about directing the flow according to conscious priorities. Imagine turning one small wooden handle beside the channel. Watch the water change direction and enter a row that had been dry. This is what one intentional adjustment can do. You do not always need dramatic reinvention. Sometimes prosperity grows through reallocation, an hour moved from distraction into learning, a recurring expense reconsidered, energy withdrawn from a dead-end commitment and redirected toward meaningful work. The amount may be small, the direction can still matter. Now stand and look toward the orchard beyond the field. Some trees are covered in fruit, while others carry only leaves. A few are still young. This is a more honest picture of life than imagining every effort producing equal results. Some projects flourish. Some need more time. Some reveal through experience that they are not worth continuing. Prosperity requires enough emotional flexibility to learn from all three, without turning every disappointing outcome into a judgment of your worth. Walk beneath one of the fruit-bearing trees and reach upward. Feel the imagined weight of a ripe fruit settling into your palm. This represents an outcome produced through some combination of preparation, circumstances, opportunity, work, relationships, timing, and factors you may never completely control. Receive it without pretending you created every condition that made it possible. Humility and agency can coexist. You can acknowledge your effort while recognizing that no individual controls the entire weather system surrounding a harvest. And here's the curiosity bridge I want you to remember. If you cannot control the weather, why cultivate the field at all? Because lack of total control does not mean lack of meaningful influence. You cannot command every financial outcome, but you can improve how you prepare, respond, learn, allocate, communicate, and adapt. That space between helplessness and omnipotence is where mature sovereignty lives. It is less dramatic than magical thinking and far more useful. Take a bite from the symbolic fruit and notice its sweetness. Allow yourself to enjoy the harvest without immediately turning enjoyment into another target. This matters more than it seems. Some people pursue prosperity so relentlessly that every achievement becomes invisible the instant it is reached. The mind moves the horizon farther away and calls the resulting dissatisfaction ambition. There is nothing wrong with wanting growth, but growth becomes hollow when you lose the ability to recognize what has already grown. Look around the field and identify something in your actual life that deserves acknowledgement. Maybe you handled a difficult season better than you once would have. Maybe you developed professional competence through years of repetition. Perhaps you became more careful with resources, learned to say no, recovered from a poor decision, or simply kept going when the path was uncertain. Do not inflate the achievement. Do not minimize it either. Accurate acknowledgement creates stronger ground than either arrogance or self-erasure. Now place your palm over your heart and say quietly, I honor what I have cultivated, and I remain available to learn. Notice the balance. You do not have to insult your present life in order to desire a richer future. You can appreciate existing supply while seeking greater stability. You can celebrate progress while identifying what still needs work. This is abundance without denial, the ability to see both the harvest and the uncultivated ground in the same field. Walk toward the storehouse at the edge of the orchard. Inside are baskets of grain arranged beneath heavy wooden beams. The air smells dry and earthy. This place represents preservation. Receiving resources is one skill. Keeping enough capacity for tomorrow is another. Financial stewardship can include planning, saving where circumstances permit, understanding obligations, avoiding decisions made solely from emotional urgency, and seeking qualified guidance for matters beyond your expertise. Spirituality does not make these practices less sacred. Touch one of the grain baskets and feel its rough woven surface. Someone gathered what the field produced instead of leaving the entire harvest exposed to weather. Think about what preservation means beyond money. Protect your attention. Protect useful routines. Protect relationships that nourish integrity. Protect periods of rest that allow you to return to meaningful work with clearer judgment. Not everything valuable belongs in a bank account. Your ability to generate value also depends on resources that cannot be counted there. Now imagine a small table inside the storehouse with a blank ledger resting upon it. Open the ledger without fear. In this visualization, there are no numbers, yet only two columns labeled what nourishes and what drains. Begin placing aspects of your life into each column. Habits, commitments, relationships with work, patterns of consumption, sources of learning. Be curious rather than punitive. The goal is not to construct a perfect life. The goal is to stop funding what repeatedly empties you without meaningful return. Whisper YESERAYE EFFATA over the open ledger. Pause. Observe. Choose. Perhaps one draining pattern becomes immediately obvious. Do not make a dramatic vow you cannot sustain. Ask for the smallest meaningful correction. Maybe a boundary, maybe a conversation, maybe 15 minutes of attention redirected each day, maybe looking honestly at a number you have avoided. Tiny corrections repeated consistently can change trajectories that dramatic declarations leave untouched. And now, we reach the deeper layer beneath the harvest. What if abundance is not only about what enters your hands, but about reducing the amount of life that escapes through unconscious patterns? A vessel with cracks can stand beneath golden rain and still remain nearly empty. This is why our journey could never end with attraction alone. The sovereign channel must also become capable of holding, directing, and circulating what passes through it. Awareness reveals the cracks without shaming the vessel. Imagine Angel Abundia entering the storehouse and placing a small piece of golden clay beside the ledger. Take it into your hands. It represents repair. See yourself applying it gently to one symbolic crack in a vessel, one pattern you are ready to address. Perhaps the crack is avoidance, impulsivity, chronic overcommitment, fear of asking questions, or difficulty receiving fair value. You do not need to repair every crack tonight. Choose the one through which the most energy seems to be escaping. Feel the clay harden beneath your fingers. Then pour a little water into the vessel and watch it remain inside. This is a quieter image of prosperity than mountains of gold, yet I find it more powerful. You are becoming capable of holding what matters. The goal is not endless accumulation. The goal is sufficient structure that resources can serve life, rather than disappear through patterns you never consciously chose. That is what stewardship looks like from the inside. If this chapter is moving something within you, declare your readiness in the comments with a grounded affirmation. I cultivate what matters and steward what I receive. Then choose one behavior to embody after this moment. Let it be small enough to perform and meaningful enough to matter. The universe does not need another perfect declaration from you. Your own future may benefit far more from one honest action repeated with consistency. Now leave the storehouse and step back into the evening air. The fields extend behind you beneath the sky turning deep blue. The irrigation channels continue carrying water even though nobody is watching them. That is the kind of prosperity architecture I want you to build. Practices that continue supporting you after inspiration fades. Systems stronger than mood. Boundaries stronger than urgency. Habits simple enough to survive ordinary days. A harvest that grows through rhythm rather than emotional intensity. Ahead, on a distant hill, a final golden light appears. Angel Abundia walks toward it without turning back, and I want you to follow. We have moved from conflict into neutrality, from inherited scarcity into conscious permission, from receptivity into action, from action into integration, and now from integration into behavior. Only one movement remains, not another technique, not another secret, an integration, a way of carrying everything we have practiced into the life waiting beyond this moment. Climb the hill slowly. With every step, feel the symbolic weight of everything you no longer need to drag upward. Frantic striving, passive waiting, guilt around receiving, the demand for instant evidence, inherited instructions treated as permanent law. At the summit, the golden light widens until it touches the entire horizon. There is no treasure chest waiting there. There is something more demanding and more sovereign, your own life, exactly as it is, waiting for you to meet it differently. And when we reach that summit, we will not ask abundance to prove itself through spectacle. We will gather the river, the chalice, the golden current, the field, the open gate, and the sacred neutral point into one final embodied practice. YESERAYE EFFATA will return one last time as the anchor between intention and action. Then the symbols will fall away. What remains will be the person who learned how to create, receive, discern, preserve, release, and walk forward whole. Stand with me at the summit and look toward the horizon. The landscape below carries every place we have crossed. The silent ocean, the ancestral corridor, the golden doorway, the river, the harvest field, the chalice, the storehouse. None of them was meant to become another place for you to hide from reality. Each was a mirror for something already moving within you. Now, the mirrors can disappear, because the final practice begins when you return fully to your own life. Feel the air against your face and imagine dawn breaking across the horizon. At first, there is only a thin golden line, then warmth spreads slowly across the sky until the landscape becomes visible without effort. This is how I want clarity to arrive, not as frantic revelation, but as increasing visibility. You do not need every answer at once. You need enough light for the next honest step, enough awareness to recognize what deserves action, and enough patience to leave tomorrow's decisions for tomorrow. Angel Abundia stands beside you one final time in this visualization. There are no overflowing coins around her, no supernatural contract promising wealth, no shortcut around work, circumstance, uncertainty, or wise financial judgment. Her presence represents something quieter, an orientation toward sufficiency, generosity, possibility, and responsible participation. Look at her hands. One is open toward the sky, the other points gently toward the earth. Receive and embody, imagine and act, trust and discern. The entire journey is contained inside that gesture. Now place one hand over your heart and the other over your abdomen. Feel the natural rise and fall beneath your palms. You inhale, you receive, you exhale, you contribute. Between them, the sacred neutral point appears for a fraction of a second. Enter it without forcing your breath. In that small stillness, say inwardly, YESERAYE EFFATA. Let the phrase remind you of what it has represented throughout our practice. Pause, observe, choose, move. There is one final secret hidden inside that sequence, and it is simpler than all the imagery surrounding it. You do not need to remain in a perfect state of abundance consciousness every day. You will have anxious mornings. Old scarcity thoughts may return. A difficult expense may disturb your peace. An opportunity may confuse you. Integration is not never becoming unsettled again. It is learning how to return, and that ability to return is what I want you to carry from this summit. Imagine waking on an ordinary morning several weeks from now. There is no golden landscape around you. Perhaps your phone is already demanding attention. Perhaps obligations are waiting before you have finished your first drink of water. Then an old financial worry enters your mind. Instead of immediately following it into 10 imagined futures, pause. Feel your feet. Breathe once. YESERAYE EFFATA. Ask, what is actually required from me right now? Maybe nothing can be done in that exact moment. Then your task is not to manufacture action merely to reduce discomfort. Maybe information is needed later. Maybe a conversation must happen after you gather facts. Maybe the responsible action is immediate and simple. Integration allows both possibilities. You no longer worship movement, and you no longer romanticize waiting. You respond according to what the moment genuinely requires, as best you can understand it. Imagine another day when opportunity appears. Perhaps someone introduces an idea, a project opens, your work receives recognition, or you encounter information that might improve your financial life. Notice the old reflexes arriving. Grab it before it disappears. Or perhaps, this cannot possibly be for me. Neither voice has to control the response. Pause. Ask questions. Understand what you can. Consider risk. Seek qualified guidance when necessary. Then decide from the clearest ground available to you. This is the sovereign channel in motion. It is not someone who never doubts. It is someone who has stopped interpreting doubt as an automatic command to retreat. It is not someone who always acts. It is someone capable of acting when action belongs. It is not someone who receives everything offered. It is someone who can receive without shame and still discriminate between what nourishes and what drains. Sovereignty contains flexibility. And now, we return to the dual energies that began this journey. What once appeared as masculine drive and feminine reception can finally be experienced without rigid boundaries. Direction lives inside you. Receptivity lives inside you. Courage and softness can occupy the same body. Discipline and intuition can speak within the same decision. You do not need to perform one polarity to deserve prosperity. You need access to the full range of your own capacities. Close your eyes and imagine the two original currents appearing again. The golden current enters through one palm. The silver current enters through the other. Watch them travel slowly through your arms until they meet behind your chest. There is no explosion when they touch. They simply blend, becoming a warm white gold light that expands gently through your torso. Say YESERAYE EFFATA and allow the distinction between the currents to dissolve. Let that light move through your shoulders and down your arms. Imagine it reaching your hands, the hands that will actually interact with the world. These hands may work, create, type, build, care, organize, sign, calculate, give, receive, save, spend, repair, and begin again. This is where spiritual abundance touches matter, not through fantasy replacing action, but through inner orientation, influencing the quality of your participation. The sacred blueprint eventually reaches the fingertips. Now imagine those hands holding a single golden seed. This seed represents the next chapter of your financial and spiritual life, but nothing is written on it yet. Do not ask it to become a fortune overnight. Ask instead what conditions would help it grow. Knowledge, consistency, courage, better boundaries, greater patience, a clearer plan. Perhaps you need to ask for help. Perhaps you need to finish what you already started. Let one answer rise. Place the seed into the earth at your feet. Cover it slowly with soil. This is the final act of manifestation I want to leave with you. Intention entering behavior. A vision becomes a conversation. A desire becomes a plan. A plan becomes repeated action. Action produces information. Information allows adjustment. Some seeds grow. Others teach you that another direction is needed. You remain awake enough to learn from both. And here is the bridge back to the mystery we began with. Financial flow is never simply about doing more or surrendering more. The deeper question was whether you could stop dividing yourself whenever uncertainty appeared. Could the part of you that builds listen to the part that senses? Could the part that receives cooperate with the part that protects? Could ambition exist without panic? Could peace survive alongside desire? That internal treaty is the real territory we have been exploring. Imagine rain beginning softly around you, not coins. Not miraculous treasure, just warm golden rain as a symbol of possibility touching the field you have prepared. Feel it against your face, your shoulders, your open palms. You cannot command how much rain falls, when it comes, or which seed responds fastest, but you can prepare the ground. You can tend what grows. You can learn the seasons. You can become a more conscious participant in the harvest. Open your palms fully. Notice that receiving feels different now, because your hands also know what to do after receiving. You can hold without clenching. You can release without emptying yourself compulsively. You can direct resources according to your values. You can appreciate financial growth without turning numbers into a measurement of human worth. You can seek wealth while remembering that the person seeking it is already larger than any balance displayed on a screen. I want you to carry that distinction carefully. Money can provide options, comfort, protection, experiences, opportunities, and the ability to support meaningful priorities. Financial stability matters, but if you ask money to settle every question of identity, belonging, worthiness, or peace, you give it a task no amount can reliably complete. Let financial resources remain valuable without becoming sacred in themselves. Let your deepest sacredness remain somewhere no market can price. Now breathe deeply. On the inhale, say internally, I receive with discernment. On the exhale, I create with purpose. Inhale, I allow. Exhale, I act. Then rest naturally in the pause and whisper, YESERAYE EFFATA. Feel the rhythm without needing to intensify it. This is enough. The body already understands what the mind spent so many words trying to separate. Imagine Angel Abundia beginning to walk toward the sunrise. Do not follow her this time. That is important. Her symbolic work in this meditation is complete. Instead, remain where you are and watch the figure gradually dissolve into the golden horizon until only light remains. The source of your next decision is no longer standing ahead of you in symbolic form. You must now turn around and carry the teaching back toward the ordinary world. As you descend the hill, notice that every symbol disappears behind you. The chalice fades. The river disappears into mist. The golden doorway closes without locking. The ancestral corridor becomes distant. Even the harvest field dissolves into morning light. What remains is remarkably simple. Your breath, your attention, your capacity to choose, and the real circumstances waiting for your participation. A useful spiritual practice should eventually return you to those things with greater clarity. When fear returns, you can return. When urgency rises, you can return. When receiving activates guilt, you can return. When ambition becomes strain, you can return. Not to escape reality, but to meet it again without unnecessary internal warfare. YESERAYE EFFATA. Pause. Observe. Choose. Move. Then return again whenever necessary. Sovereignty is not a permanent emotional altitude. It is a practiced way home. If you feel your relationship with prosperity shifting, Declare your readiness in the comments with words that reflect agency rather than expectation. I am ready to create and receive from wholeness. Let that declaration become a marker for the person you intend to practice being. Then do something tangible. Open the document, make the call, review the numbers, ask the question, protect the boundary, accept legitimate support. Give this inner movement a footprint in your physical life. And when you meet your next opportunity, do not ask only, how much can this give me? Ask what it requires, what it costs, what it teaches, what value you can contribute, and whether it belongs to the life you actually want to build. That is a different frequency of prosperity, not mystical vibration controlling external outcomes, but a quality of consciousness that changes the questions you bring to them. Better questions can lead to better decisions. The sunrise has reached you now. Feel its warmth across your hands. There is nothing left to chase across the horizon. The golden rain has become ordinary sunlight, and perhaps that is the final revelation. Abundance does not always arrive wearing extraordinary clothing. Sometimes it appears as an idea worth developing, a skill worth practicing, an unnecessary expense finally noticed, a courageous conversation, an unexpected kindness, an open door, or the wisdom to walk away from the wrong one. Stand still for one final breath. Remember the sound of the river, the weight of the chalice, the cool earth beneath your fingers, the golden current moving through your palms. Remember the ancient tension that brought you here: hustle against surrender, action against attraction, masculine against feminine. Now feel how unnecessary that war has become. You can move without abandoning stillness. You can receive without abandoning sovereignty. You can desire expansion without declaring war against the present. Say it one final time, slowly enough to hear the silence surrounding each word. YESERAYE EFFATA. Then release even the phrase. No chasing, no forcing, no bargaining with the universe. Only awareness, intention, discernment, courageous action, intelligent reception, and the willingness to keep cultivating what matters. The channel is no longer divided. Your hands are open, your feet are grounded, and the next step is yours.